Sup nerds, I'm Tom.
I'm Wes.
There is an awful lot of stuff on the table. We've got 3 different project Ds. One's a reprint.
One, two, 3.
Yeah, we could stuff over there.
I watched Sesame Street.
6 bets! 7 bets!
So like Tom said, we've got 3 things on the table here that are going to be crowdfunded from Starling Games, all in the Black Orchestra umbrella. So right here we've got Black Orchestra. We also have the expansion that's coming out for it, and then the Valkyrie game, which is a very similar game, just kind of stripped down and more streamlined and simpler.
So the OG Black Orchestra, if you've never played it, and I guess we'll talk about that kind of briefly, just in case you haven't played it, but then we'll focus on the expansion to Black Orchestra, and then I'll talk about Valkyrie and how that is different from the base game and the expansion. Still very much in the same vein, it's just a stripped down, more streamlined version. So in all versions of this game, you're killing Hitler. Good job, Deadpool.
Oh yes, you're already practicing your little salute, huh?
So the whole game does hinge upon you completing that. Like, that's how you win, but you also spend the whole game traveling around the board, picking up items and gathering what you need for the plot while trying to increase your motivation to actually pull this off and make sure your suspicion doesn't get too high for you to get captured.
Yeah, so it does kind of fit into like the pandemic-y realm of games where you are all playing cooperatively. On your turn, you will have a set number of actions to try to complete your goal, and then at the end of your turn, the bad guys kind of hit back and do the bad stuff. Mm-hmm. And the challenge is balancing what you need to do to actually win the game, while also making sure that you're not susceptible for the bad stuff to kill you and beat the game itself.
Yeah, it's a lot of this game is risk management, because there is a lot of dice in the game. It is not a dice game. I would probably call Valkyrie a dice game, but a lot of the mechanics do rely on dice. Like, for instance, the actual plot that you're going to pull off. The actual plot, it'll tell you how many dice you get to roll for that plot. Then you can get other items that'll let you re-roll and stuff. And the number of hits you need to have depends on Hitler's military thing here, right? So that's a big part of it. But a lot of other things will require you to roll dice to see if you evade suspicion or if you increase your suspicion and stuff. So there's an awful lot of mitigating that luck there, and trying to mitigating risk, really, because you may be willing to let your suspicion go up high. Like, having high suspicion, or I guess in this case it's called extreme suspicion, because there is a high, and high is the second highest. High isn't even the high. Extreme is the high.
They get it.
You can have that, and there's nothing wrong with that until a Gestapo raid happens.
Yeah, and then if you're both at extreme suspicion because you've been caring about it, all of a sudden the game just ends.
Now, both if you're playing with 2 players. We played it with 2 players, so that's why he said both. But yeah, if you're playing with 3 players, if both of the 3 players...
And there are some things where you have to gain suspicion to do them. There are some things where you can risk, hey, I'm going to try to do something better, but I might gain suspicion. So, like you said...
Or if your suspicion is already at extreme, who cares, right?
Yeah.
I mean, well...
But you may be saying...
In for a penny, in for a pound.
Who cares, I'm already high, when you should be saying, how do I get this back down again? Because if a raid comes up, which are in the decks, there could be on the board, like there's several different ways when you open a door, all of a sudden, like, well, crap, I was looking for explosives, and the Gestapo was here. Yeah.
Well, actually... I think that scenario you just brought up is the more akin to the expansion module. So I'll start talking about the expansions here. There's 3 modules, right? One of which is the ally module, which adds more tokens to the board. Normally there's 1 token per spot. And actually, real quick, I'll jump back to just the base game, because the board is split up into a bunch of different sections based on number, and that's like the stage you're on, right? At the end of every turn, you're going to draw a card from an event deck that has a couple of cards, and then you're going to do through event deck 1, event deck 2. When you're in event deck 2, now you can have more of the board. Event deck 3, you have more of the board too. So now it's like, that's like historically accurate. Like, well, you know, at that time, there weren't any troops over this area, so you couldn't go there at that. Like, it kind of makes sense.
As time progresses and the Reich expands, you know, you have to go to more places, but also have more agility, I guess.
And then there's actually, in stage 7, it goes backwards, because he started losing ground. Now, what was I talking about? Yeah, you add more items there's 2 items in each section now, and they're mostly good. They mostly help you get allies, which we'll talk about. But there are some other items in there, like a wild any item, items that let you reduce your suspicion or increase your motivation. One of those really big things that normally you can't just get from an item, or
a raid.
All right.
I do appreciate that the expansion is all modular, so you can choose 1 of 3, 2 of 3, or even 3 of 3.
Which we did.
Which we did. To just modify your game, choose what you want to add, how much new stuff you want to add, scale it to who you want to play. Maybe if there's a module that like, well, I know this person doesn't care for this module, so we don't have to worry about that one right now.
And it does say in the rulebook which ones generally make the game easier. Allies is actually in the middle. Allies make the game harder at the beginning. Because at first, if you don't have any allies, you actually can't even complete a plot. As you collect allies, which is really just you pick up the item and then you roll a die and you can add it to the main ally board. They have one-time use abilities on them, but just while they're on the ally board, they modify your plot. So when you have 0, you can't even do a plot. As you start adding them, plots are still harder, but they get better and better. And then once you have a full plot board, or
full ally board,
now you have a static, it's a +1 success, right?
Yep.
Boom.
You also get some component upgrades in the expansion where these little dude holders, they used to just be the token on the board, and now they have a nice little holder that, one, adds to your table presence and helps you move them around. Just kind of, honestly, it keeps the board a little cleaner because there's a lot of tokens out there. So being able, especially with 2 items in each place, now being able to move them around is a little easier. It's a little bit like more visually compelling, and I always like component upgrades. That's just it's a nice thing I always like to see.
But also they give you enough for all of the guys, Hitler and all of his cronies. I don't know what they're called. What are they called in the game? Whatever. For all the bad guys. They also give you one more because there's a new bad guy. In this.
So the expansion does add a new minion on the board as well, which is H. Kopkow. Which one, he just, wherever he just blocks the location. You can't pick things up, you can't reveal things or anything else at that location. But what makes him different is that he is actually going to follow your people around the board. So the closest conspirator with the highest suspicion, he is going to always move towards.
And that's at the end of the round. Normally the other guys trigger at the beginning of the round. He starts doing shit at the end of the round.
Yeah. And when you have an encounter with him, you will actually draw from his encounter deck, so you never really know what's going to happen. And it's not good stuff that's going to happen.
So now everything we've talked about so far has made the game harder. And the game's already hard as it is. Let's talk about a module that just statically makes the game easier, generally speaking. And that is the goals. So there's going to be an action that you can take that'll drop a token on the board. And as long as that token's on the board, there's going to be a goal card that just says, hey, go to this place and do this thing, or drop this item, or pick up this item, or raise your suspicion, or move people over here. And they're general things that you can do. They're not as difficult to pull off as a plot, but general things that you can do. And whenever you do, there is a instant reward that you'll get. But then the constant reward is that you'll get a +1 die to all plots that you ever try. So it's definitely good to go for a couple of those. And you can actually have 3 active at any one time. Actually, Wes, can you hand me a couple of them?
Yes.
So for instance, this one here, security clearance, go to Gestapo HQ and discard a signature. Right when you do that, you can ignore the next Gestapo raid, which is really insanely good. But like that's something you can do. Go to the Gestapo HQ and discard a signature. That's just like doing the pick up and deliver part of the main game, which actually I don't even know if we talked about. In the base game, there is a bit of a pick up and deliver. It's just items that you pick up that you're normally going to do for plots. Some of them, hey, this isn't worth my plot. This isn't necessary for my plot or whatever. There's always spots you can go to just deliver that item to get the benefit on the board. Normally, lowering your suspicion or increasing your motivation or reducing his military support. Actually, I don't think any of them increases military support.
Suspicion.
Does that happen?
Suspicion.
Actually, none of them do motivation either. Those are just the static
It's just ways
ones.
to lower your suspicion.
But the reason why the tokens are important is because if Hitler or any of his cronies walk into a space with that token, it goes bye-bye. So you can have up to 3 goals available at any time, which I think is a really good idea. And again, it's extra things. You do have to spend an action to reveal them, or you can actually put 2 tokens of the same color down, and now the Hitler and his cronies have to delete both of those tokens in order for that goal to go away. Makes it a little bit better. So sure, you're spending extra actions doing that, but the goals are so helpful that it's totally worth it. This is probably an expansion that I would include every single time. Like, I don't know if I would do all 3 modules again, per se. Like, that was pretty intense.
There's a lot going on.
But I would definitely do, this one's an auto-include, and then, actually, the Allies is also pretty... Actually, it really isn't that. It's not that bad. It's not that bad to do all 3, to be honest. It does say in the rule book, we recommend you don't do that for your first game. And every time I read that, I'm like, well, I'm f***ing doing it now.
If it does sound like that's a little bit complicated for you, there is a solution for you, which is Valkyrie.
Now, Valkyrie is, at its core, very, very similar definitely in theme, obviously, and in a lot of mechanics, but many much stripped down and streamlined. So
many much.
This game I would call at its core is a dice game. You're going to roll dice based on the number of actions that you have, which for everybody I think is 3, except there's one character who has 4. When you roll those dice, if you get any of the eagle symbols, the bad symbol, you have to draw a bad card. And actually it does have to go in this order. You have to trigger these bad cards first. And what's really cool about them is these are similar to the interrogation cards where you have to do it silently. But there's an A option, which is bad. There's a B option, which is bad, and there's a C option, which is like, hey, you could roll a die, and if you get this symbol, hey, nothing happens. But if you screw up, you have to do A and B. Now, I said A and B are both bad. I mean, it's possible that, like, oh, this is to do a thing that couldn't possibly happen. Oh, get rid of all these items here. Those items are already gone.
It's situationally bad.
Sure, but by and large, yeah. And it's so cool to, like, watch another player pull a card and go, and you're like, don't do it! And they're like, well, maybe. Son of a... And similar to regular Black Orchestra, you're just trying to move around the board, gather up all the items that you need for a plot, and just be at the right place, right time, with the right stuff to kill Hitler. Now, you don't have to draw a plot from the main deck. You just... all the items will just tell you how many dice get added to your plot. So, like, if you have explosives and a detonator, hey, you're just going to have a base of 3 dice. I kind of jumped out of order. I said that at the start of your turn, you're going to roll the 3 dice. There's the bad symbol. There's also the target symbol. That, very similar to in Black Orchestra, there's a mechanic where when you roll these target symbols, they come up there, and once there's 3, you trigger something. Same thing here. You roll a target symbol, it comes up to the corner of the board. Once there's 3, you will get an ally that gets added to your space. And then, with the remaining die that have this little action symbol on it, you can perform actions. Now, that order is important because bad stuff happens, then the ally happens, then you do your actions. So if you're starting in a space where you don't want any of these allies to go to that space, because usually some of the allies are constant effects for the board, but a lot of them are actions when you're at that space. So you're like, well, I have to add this ally to this space. Kind of wish I could have added it over here. That would have been cooler, but I can't move over there yet until, so you really have to be like, okay, well now I want to move to that spot, hopefully roll that symbol, and then put that ally here. That'll be good. Ooh. But that's mostly it. Like, it's way simpler and quicker. I've played this game in like 30 minutes. Mm-hmm. Now, granted, both times we're with 2 players, but still. So I'd say maybe an hour tops if you've got 4 players.
So I personally am a huge fan of cooperative games. I kind of compared it to Pandemic in the beginning of the video, and it definitely does have those similarities in that, like, the structure of turns, I think, is similar, and that it's my turn, I'm going to go do stuff, it's your turn, you're going to go do stuff. Sometimes I have stuff you need, and if we go to the same place, we can swap it, and then the bad guy does stuff. I love that system. I think that games like that are a ton of fun, and I like ones that are challenging. I like the challenge of a cooperative game. It's not just like we're doing a puzzle together, but it is a game that we lose sometimes, a game that you have to challenge yourself. You have to actually, like, no, we need to put forth effort and win, because last time this game beat us, and this time we're going to crush it.
It does fit in that you're trying to pull off this plot, and you're like, sure, we could spend forever. If we had all the time in the world, we could gather all the stuff we need, and we could roll 200 dice. But we're on stage 7 now. Things are looking, we don't have that much time left. So I think I'm feeling pretty reckless. Let's do this,
I also appreciate the dice aspect of it. Not that, like... So when it's just deck-based, I feel like you can be more like, oh, well, the deck was just stacked against us. Mm-hmm, yeah. And yes, the dice gods can be against you as well, but I feel like I have more of a chance with, like, I'm rolling, and this is the roll, and what's it going to be? And there's just so many variables to that. I think that adds another level of fun to the game as well.
So this campaign really does have a little something for everybody. If you have Black Orchestra, hey, you can get the expansion. If you don't have Black Orchestra, you can get Black Orchestra and the expansion. And if you're looking for, if you're looking for something lighter, you can get Valkyrie. Or if you want to just be a cool guy instead of a dweeb, get all 3.
Well, that way you have options.
That way you got options, right? Yeah.
Is that what you have it?
So if you can't tell, we were really impressed with this game. I think you will be too, which is why you should go down to the description and click on the link to the crowdfunding page. Check it out. Go ahead, all in, back everything. In fact, get a copy for your friends too, because I think you'll all enjoy it.
And while you're down there, check out our link. So close too. And while you're down there, check out our link for Game Toppers. It's what we're filming on right here. They're the sponsor of Neverboard Gaming. They're absolutely phenomenal. I hate playing on anything other than a Game Toppers table.
You know what else I hate? It's not being subscribed to Neverboard Gaming.
That's awful. You know what? If you're watching this and you're not subscribed, shame on you.
But if you are
Shame
subscribed, then you know you'll never be bored.
Hey. Wait, hang on.
That one's mine.
Why is your beer all the way over there, man? Oh wait, do you need me to move the Game Toppers
so convenient.
cup holder over there on the nice
Look at
spot?
how easy
Wow,
it
it's
just
so
slots
easy.
into the table.
Wow, oh my gosh. You know what would be really cool is if there was also a link for Game Toppers in that description down below.